When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there everybody, welcome to Join Up Dots. There's only one thing I can do on this episode to kick it all off. Here comes the sun, diddle-diddle, here comes the sun. If you've been listening to Join Up Dots up to this point, you will know that it's been freezing in the United Kingdom. Today, it is getting there. It's getting there. I've just been sitting out in the garden, having a bit of lunch, ready to record this show, and it's perfect. It's perfect. And I bet my guest has a life that is perfect as well, because I tell you what, from my introduction, I think he is someone who's found his thing in life, the thing that makes him bounce out of bed with excitement and enthusiasm. He's the CEO of Kansas City Website Design, who work with clients across the world building websites that not only look great, but also operate brilliantly too. Alongside his team, they work hard to make sure that the SEO element, which is so important to gain Google rankings, is built into the design to ensure visibility. As he says, internet marketing is a lot like NASCAR racing. You need a fast car and a talented driver to compete and win. You can't have one without the other. Now, I build high-performance websites and drive them to the top of the major search engines for my clients with organic search engine optimization and pay-per-click advertising management services. My approach to web development is laser-focused on return on investment. I have a contrarian view of website design, which many of our competitors find distasteful, perhaps even blasphemous. Great web design is a commodity, as is his passion for the task. And that is one side of what makes this guy perfect for Join Up Dots, is although he's now performing in a way that looks like it was a master plan right from the beginning, I'm sure we'll find out that just wasn't the case. As his journey has taken him all over the world, he's fluent in Mandarin Chinese and has lived and travelled extensively in Asia for over 10 years, based in Taipei, Taiwan? Yeah, that is how you say it. With stints in Beijing, Shanghai and Hong Kong, and now lives in Overland Park, Kansas with his wife Vivian and twin sons Eli and Austin. And my favourite fact that in a way shows so much about how the guy operates, but he may be the world's most successful SEO internet marketer that's never had an active Facebook account. Love that fact, as it proves that there's many different ways to go about building success, and more often than not, the best way is to simply do your own thing and create your own path. So what is it about the online world that makes him scream, no, it's never gonna work, come and speak to me? And what is it about web design that excites him the most, the creative element or the behind the scenes mechanics of it all? Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up dots with the one and only Mr. Phil Singleton. Good morning, Phil. How are you, sir?
Great. Wow, that was an amazing intro.
You deserve it. You deserve it. It is Taiwan. No, it's Taiwan, isn't it? That's why it didn't sound right in my head. Taiwan, of course it is. So, based in Taipei, Taiwan, you're now in Kansas City. Which is the most exotic for you, sir?
I'm gonna have to go with Taiwan. I mean, it's Kansas City's an awesome place to raise a family, and that's kind of why we ended up coming back here. But man, I sure do miss the hustle and bustle, and in some ways, I guess the overtime work ethic, I guess I would call it, of maybe Asia in general, but certainly the business environment in Taiwan.
And do you think you need overtime work ethic, or is it you're not doing the right things? Because I speak to people in the early days of Join Up Dots, it was all about hustle muscle, flexing the hustle muscle, getting out there. But now I'm finding a kind of vibe where people are going, well, actually, if you do the right things in the right order, you don't need that sort of overwork. What do you think?
I hit the nail on the head. I mean, I had a job, my first job out of school was one that kind of fell out of my lap, and it was, 9 to 5 in a cubicle, beige building, beige carpet, beige cubicle.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I had beige pants on. And it was a struggle, just being in there from 9 to 5. Now I think I work probably 5 to 9 and I'm having the time of my life, right? Because it doesn't feel like work. So I guess that's what I mean more. If you're really doing stuff and kind of living, making your life, your work kind of almost like, to me, it feels like a lifestyle, right? I've got it. I'm motivated. I'm really happy to work, get up in the morning and kind of dive into it because I found my life's passion. It's really not work anymore, but it's still, since I've kind of aligned those two up, I probably work a lot harder than I did when the insurance company I was working for was trying to get some productivity out of me in a miserable, cubicle 9 to 5.
Now, obviously, there's going to be listeners out there going, yeah, all right, he's saying that, but it's just because he's on a podcast. That's not how life is. Would you have said the same thing maybe 15, 20 years ago? Were you in that sort of mindset that actually it is boring work, you have to just go there and get through it so that you can go out on a Friday night, have a beer and enjoy your weekend?
I guess that when I'm looking back kind of on myself, you just don't, because you're coming out of school or wherever you're coming out of to try and enter the workforce, I guess you don't think that work can be that fulfilling because you haven't had it yet. And maybe in some cases, you just haven't even had the experience that it can be like that. So in my case, I think it took a little bit of life experience bouncing around, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And really, I think probably being miserable in my first job and almost kind of forcing me to make a big change because I was in a path back then where I felt like I was doing really well in a job that I didn't like. And it was almost like you start to feel those little golden handcuffs come onto your wrists, and you kind of start seeing yourself being forced down a career path almost that really you didn't have any. It just kind of fell in your lap. And all of a sudden it's like you might not be able to break out of it. And I'm looking around seeing guys that have been around in that company for 20 or 30 years. I was like, that's not me. I got to make a big change type of a thing. So yeah, I think, but it's still scary to kind of know that when you see something you don't really like, but you know it's not for you, and then having to kind of jump out and make a big change, really to almost force a change of the trajectory of your career path, right? You just don't know. But I can say, looking back now, that I mean, certainly that was a good choice to make. And if you look around and try and find something that really makes you happy, it almost doesn't feel like work anymore. Although I don't know how many people can jump out super early in their careers and get that kind of peace or enthusiasm or passion right out of the gate. But I'm sure it does happen to some people.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and say exactly the same thing there. I think that you've got to try stuff. You've got to break a few eggs, because it's almost impossible, isn't it, to come out of the education system going, I know what I want to do with my life. And one or two people in my life, I know that when they were like 5, they were saying, I want to be a vet. And when they sort of grow up, they're a vet, but very few people. You've got to try the things that you don't like so that you can chip away. And it's like doing a sculpture. You get a big block of what you don't like and you keep on taking things off it until you go, I think I can see what I need to do now. That's my path.
Exactly. And one of the things I see today that I think is super awesome that I didn't have, 15 or 20 years ago was you can kind of come in and have a job, maybe bounce around on something that is probably not going to be like your life's past or something you're going to be passionate for the rest of your working life. There's this whole like gig economy that's out there where you can kind of hustle on the side and figure out a few things and maybe find a few customers, try a few things, build a website on the side, try a service and kind of do these things. And test things for not a whole lot of money until maybe you do find something that ignites that passion that says, hey, because when to me, I mean, when I had my first kind of glimpse of helping a small business, I mean, it was like instant. I was like, this is kind of what I want to do forever, because I just knew it at the time. And I don't know if that's something that happens to everybody, but I do feel like when something lights you up like that, a lot of people are going to know. Once they've tried a few things around and not feel like, because I feel like, looking back, I kind of felt like, is this the way life is going to be? Am I going to be stuck and just watching the clock and doing something, that I don't want to do for the rest of my life? And it's not like it's miserable all the time, because it's nice getting a paycheck and being able to pay the bills. And I guess in some ways it makes things sweeter when you're able to get off and, like you say, on the weekends or on a happy hour and go out with your friends because you're looking to get away. But I don't think work or life, has to be like that type of a deal. But I do think today, in today's world, the way we work, it would have been awesome for me to have a job from 9 to 5 and then be able to kind of try out these little gig type things, because I would have been motivated to do so. And that might have gotten me on a path to where I am quicker than how I kind of stumbled, through it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. This show's not about me, but hey, it's my show, it's my microphone, so I'm going to talk about myself. But this morning, I got up at 5 o'clock. I recorded 3 shows, 9 o'clock to about 1. I just kind of just wallied around, as we say in the United Kingdom. I sat in the garden a bit, I did a bit of this and a bit of that, and then I realised that I've got the next 4 shows to record this afternoon, and so I've come up to my recording studio, and you just can't do that in corporate life, can you? You can't say to your boss, actually, there's not a lot to do at the moment, I think I'm going to go and sit in the park. You've just got to kind of stay there. It seems to be sort of boredom by attrition somehow.
Exactly. I mean, I look back at, like, my dad really worked his butt off for one company, wasn't able to spend a whole lot of time, I think, with us in the early years because he was working so hard. So one of the things I love about the job that I have now, especially when we first got started, is I was able to kind of work from home. I was able to spend some time with the kids before they went to school full time. And I was really with them every day, went to every doctor's appointment. I mean, kind of doing everything that I could to spend every minute that I could, be a part of this kind of early part of their life. In a way that I think a lot of 9-to-5 folks or corporate work can't do it. So exactly what you said. I mean, I could work my butt off. I could get up early. I could work a little bit at home, play with the kids when I got to jump back and do things that are just basically would be impossible for kind of that traditional career path.
So let's talk about your business, obviously, because that's what we've got you here. But in Join Up Dots fashion, we will be jumping back and forth, connecting the dots, as they say. So you are an SEO internet marketer. Now, SEO used to be something that would frighten everyone. And then there was a kind of vibe that you just write for the individual, you write for the reader. Is that a simplistic way of talking? Is there so much more to it? Are you ever going to be a true master of SEO?
I think it's a really exciting time for SEO because since I've been involved with it, it was really kind of more of a backroom, under the hood tactic where people would really focus a lot of time on trying to tweak the websites in a way that would maybe game or trick the system a little bit. And certainly for a long, long time, one of the big focuses on at least SEO companies in general was to do volume-based link building, right? Trying to go out there and find as many links as possible to get back to your website. And that really kind of moved the needle for a long, long time. But about 5-6 years ago, Google came out, and because it was getting so rampant in terms of people trying to work the system, that you had mainstream companies, even large, publicly listed companies, really trying to get in and use some of these shady tactics to try and get ranking. So Google came out, and for the first time, again, this is going about 5 or 6 years ago, they started to make their algorithms a little bit more punitive in nature. So it wasn't just about rewarding you for the good things you were doing and forgetting about the things that maybe were a little bit tricky. They actually went out and started to penalize websites for going out and doing some of these shady SEO tactics. Well, that really changed the game, okay? Because for a long time, those of us who are focused on SEO, we did the things that actually got results, right? And even though they said content was king, they really didn't mean it because we knew, we could see in the background what things were actually working. Well, when this new age of algorithms came out, it really changed the whole game. I mean, people, when they said content is king, they meant it this time. They really were able to go out and I think start to measure things, more types of diverse marketing signals, such as things that were going on social media, reputation management, really got a good handle on trying to determine what good quality content is. So the exciting thing about SEO today is it's become a lot more holistic. It's become a lot more of, I think, what digital marketing looks like. If you're doing all the good things that you should be doing marketing wise for your users and in terms of generating great content and participating in social media. And the key to all this really is to having a good website and making it the referral source for all of your best content. It's really almost become a consultative or consulting based service now, instead of just one of these kind of, hey, I'll write a check and hope for the best, as it kind of was the first 10 or 15 years of how SEO services kind of worked.
Well, you're talking, of course, of Panda and Penguin. They're black and white creatures that come wandering into our world. And I was hit by them big, but in a positive way. One of the first things that I ever did, and you can go over to Join Up Dots and see it, was I built a website on the Florida Keys. And it was my first kind of affiliate business I was trying to get going. And it was doing all right. But when Panda and Penguin came in, wow, it soared. And it's been soaring ever since. It does very, very well for me, and I don't do anything with it. It just chips in with money. So Panda and Penguin were a good thing, but there were so many people out there that were frightened of the black and white creatures, weren't they?
Oh, that was really one of the most seismic shifts, I think, in SEO history. I mean, it really put a lot of SEO companies out of business. They got hurt a lot of SEO, just a lot of legitimate companies that had hired companies that were doing some of these things that Google eventually punished. So certainly for the few folks that were doing everything maybe the right way, like yourself, huge, benefits. But for people that were actually paying a lot for SEO services, I think a lot of those ended up getting really burned. And the one good thing about those is it totally changed behavior, in terms of like how a lot of internet marketers and SEO folks were approaching digital marketing services in general. And I think although it hurt really bad at the time for a lot of folks, it ended up, I think, making SEO services and probably the internet in general better, because they basically got us all focused on, generating good content and thinking about the user first and doing all the things that we probably should have been doing instead of, building links and trying to figure out ways to create pages on the website to get more traffic.
So when you started your business, Phil, because this is a stumbling block on so many people, obviously you are extremely experienced now, but where would you score yourself when you started? How far ahead of the client was you based on SEO?
I had a little bit. First of all, let me explain myself as I'm a complete web design and SEO imposter in this sense that I learned this from the outside in, right? A lot of these guys that are coming into it are coming in because it was a passion early on, or they're graphic designer, they're developers, or they're marketers on the early. I have a MBA, and a degree in finance. My first job out of school was a financial analyst, and really this fell into me while I was actually in another financial related job where I had a software company like fall into my lap, right? And what ended up happening is when this company, again, kind of fell into my lap, a lot of our sales at the time were coming from affiliate marketers. This is going back more than 15 years ago. Yeah. So I had a software company with 25 employees that I was running, and we were paying our top affiliates half of the sale, basically. It was a consumer software product. And we were writing checks for $30, $40, $50, $70,000 a month to guys that had running forums and maybe had blogs or different types of online communities, right? So they click through the ad or whatever, come through, and we'd pay them. So I was like, holy cow, how is this happening? How are they doing? Even back then, Google was driving a lot of the traffic to these sites. And I was like, how is this happening? So I had I had my team of graphic designers in-house. I had my team of developers that were working on it and customer support. Nobody could really give me an answer of how Google is ranking stuff. And so I kind of had to learn and figure it out, because the graphic guy, his explanation didn't make a lot of sense. And the developers, they didn't really know, but that's all we had back then. There weren't SEO people like, 15 years ago. You had a little bit of AdWords coming out, and Google was of course, really kind of hitting its stride. So that's kind of how I got into it. I saw that a lot of our revenues were coming in through Google, through these affiliate sales. And I was like, essentially followed the ROI trail back through Google. Now, we ended up selling that company for a variety of different reasons. And we moved back to Kansas City kind of back then. But that was kind of at that time where I was like, okay, I get what's going on. I'm going to try and figure out and dedicate myself to figure out how Google's ranking things. And that's kind of how I started. It was just basically self-study, experiments, building some small business websites, and this really kind of following what's going on day to day and seeing what things worked. And that's kind of how I got my start.
And then that's what most people can do, isn't it? You find something that you are moderately interested in, but you start to upskill yourself, and you can either go over to YouTube or whatever, but more often than not, the best way of doing it is actually sort of deconstructing other people's work and looking at the top guys and thinking, well, why is that happening? And clicking on their website and looking at that. I spend a lot of time being a podcaster looking at iTunes and clicking and working out why that does this and why that does that, because the more knowledge you get, the more power to your bow, really, and you can take that in any direction. So upskilling is a key start for the listeners out there. Don't be frightened about it. Just be aware that it's going to take a bit of time. You can sit in your study, you can sit at work if you're quiet, but start sort of breaking things and seeing how it works.
So well said. My personal opinion is I think everybody should have in the back of their mind as a side project at some time to try and see if they can put together some kind of a website project, whether it's a personal blog or something, and just kind of see how all the pieces work, try and figure out a little bit about how Google ranks things, how to put a blog post, how to integrate social media onto one of these things. Because it's just one of those skills. I mean, the more you understand how the internet works and how I think Google works in particular, you can apply that to so many different things. And you're probably in your current job, but certainly if you ever wanted to try and launch a business later, I mean, we are all website companies now. It's just the way the internet works. The two most valuable companies in the world right now, I think today, I got to check kind of where the stock market is are Apple and Google, right? By market capitalization. So, I mean, that should tell you a lot of where the world is in general, right? Apple represents kind of the form factors and the devices and the things we all consume content in, and Google's the way we get and, try and get information to consume content on those devices. So, I totally agree. I think if you get it, you can learn self-study some stuff, but I think everybody out there should be able to try and figure out, how to put a website together and just try and understand how kind of it all works. A great starting point. And again, I think that's a skill that just applies to basically any business, every business out there.
Let's play some words now, and then we're going to delve back into your story. Here's Jim Carrey.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
Now, you've already mentioned your dad a couple of times in this episode. He was a big influence due to his persistence in going to a company, because in those days, there wasn't an option. It was a job for life, I suppose.
Yeah, I think pretty much. I don't really see that. You don't see it happening as much anymore. He was a Vietnam vet, came back after the military 8 years, got a job as an assistant manager at a movie theater, ran through it for over 30 years, and retired as the president and COO of that operation. I just don't really see that kind of happen as much anymore. But yeah, and I will say I could see the one thing I can tell about my dad is even though he went through it, I mean, he definitely. You could see the passion and the motivation in his work. So I guess to some extent, he was lucky to have something that really he seemed to be excited to get up, and go out and do that kind of stuff. So that's always
and do you think
motivation.
He was, Phil?
Sorry.
When you saw him get up, you say he seemed to be excited. Do you think he actually was, or do you think he was just covering it well?
It could. It's tough. Would I like be able to guarantee and say I think towards the end, I mean here's the interesting point to that. When he retired, I think we were probably all a little bit worried, like, gosh, this has been such a big part of his life and who he was, and seemed to be such a motivating thing. But when he retired, he seemed to really enjoy retirement from right out of the gate. So that's I never really thought about it that way. But as you just asked me that question, I was like, well, geez, if somebody was really, you'd think it would be the opposite, right? You slip into some kind of depression, or you would be like constantly trying to figure out how to get back into the game. It hasn't been like that. He's been retired for years now. So.
Because my dad was, 74 when he retired. He had his own business. And now he says, I love retirement. I just love retirement. And I've never actually asked that question. I've never actually said to him, did you actually like running the business? And I bet he would say, well, no, it was all right. It paid the bills or whatever, But now he's become younger. He's like Benjamin Button. He's nearly 80 and he's getting younger and younger every day. And I think to myself, God, what would life have been like if you could have done this 5 or 6 years earlier, or 10 years earlier, or 20 years earlier? It's just, I need to sit down with him one day and actually ask him, because I think there's clues to how to live your life going forward.
Exactly. But I mean, I look back when I started, when I left and we sold this software company, it was a nice payday. It wasn't a grand slam, buy yourself an island type of a retirement type thing, but it certainly helped out a lot early on. And it enabled me to basically fumble around for almost a year. I did a couple, websites and things like that, but I got bored. I mean, when you don't have anything, you really have to try. I really wanted to find something to do because at that point, I don't know. So I guess it depends on where you are in life at some point, but I can't imagine not doing something that's business related. But I mean, who knows? I mean, when you get to a certain point where it makes a lot of sense.
So with your business, obviously you love it, but did you love the creative aspect of it, or do you love the running of the business?
my passion's going to be SEO, or the competitive thing of Google, because it's a zero-sum game to some extent. There's only one first page and there's only one top rank, so to speak. So being able to kind of work on that and see the objective results of your work is extremely rewarding. And then what comes from that, helping small businesses grow, is also really, I think, for me, what's done. There parts of this business that I don't enjoy as others. I'm not crazy about, going through the full web design process. One is because there's not a whole lot of money in it, really. Even if you charge for custom websites is one thing, but to do them right, it's kind of a grind to do that. And of course, but when they're launched and the client's happy and they start generating revenues, it's a great piece of it. Now, I more enjoy, obviously, kind of the ongoing work, the consulting base of working with the clients, kind of managing that aspect of it. But yeah, there's certain parts, I guess, of the business that are less glamorous and less fun than other parts. Go ahead.
In Facebook land, when you listen to people talking, it's like every aspect of their life is amazing. And I sit here, and as a podcaster, I love it. And my show is doing extremely well, and it's fun, it's exciting. But there's an awful lot of it which is grind. It is absolutely grind. And I'm always interested why people don't want to share the grind, because I think that shows professionalism, that shows commitment. They're the kind of people that I want to actually work with, the ones who actually say, no, I get up on a Monday morning and it's not just me swanning around in my PJs all the time. It's me actually doing what needs to be done.
Exactly. So I'm coming, laying it on the table there. I do think there's parts of the business for us, and web design does tend to be, the grind part of the business. But it's weird, though, because even if I didn't have the parts that I thought were kind of the cream parts that we really liked and enjoyed more than the other parts, it still would really beat out lots of other things that I've done in my life, to make money. So to that extent, I'm kind of like, this is bad. But you're right. At some point, you can't love everything that you do. And every business, no matter what, it's, somebody's got to do part of it that's less glamorous and less fun than some of the other pieces. But that's just part of the game.
And could you sort of delegate the bits that you don't like out, or do you need to know how the engine is operating to be able to sort of actually make it work?
Great question. It's for us, it's real as a micromanager, and as I feel every client that we take on, I feel like it ends up being my company, my business, my website, which is a little bit, I guess that sounds a little bit psychotic at some point, but it really does. So I tend to want to micromanage that piece of it, because I want to try and bat 1,000, right? I'm not just trying to bring in as many clients as we can. I want to actually have these guys be our clients for years and years and years. And it just feels too scary to delegate some pieces of at least getting, being the architect or the engineer, getting the plans right. And even to some degree, managing the execution of that part of it. So it's kind of one of these things. I guess it's a Jekyll and Hyde. It's like, I guess I probably could, but I'm so fearful of delegating out that crucial piece of it that I probably should let go and find somebody to do it, but I don't know that I ever would. And that might prevent us from scaling. I'm really happy to where my agency is right now. But it just seems like I see a lot of folks that end up kind of sacrificing quality or results, by losing that piece of it. And I think that's why, at least in this business that I'm in, it's a talent-based business, I feel. So you get a lot of agencies that get out there and go for scale and kind of end up being kind of these churn and burn shops. You get other ones that kind of stay smaller and end up, I think, probably doing better work and working with clients. So that's my narrow focus of this one little segment of business. But yeah, so is that kind of a weird answer? It's like I want to hang on to the grind piece, because I think it's a core piece of why we get good results. So that could be one thing that I just kind of have to either figure out down the road or just accept that that's part of the business.
No, I don't think that's weird at all, and I think that comes down to professionalism again. I totally do. You know, I used to be a manager up in the City of London, and one of the things that I used to do that used to wind the directors up big time. The directors were always saying, you shouldn't be so hands-on, David. You shouldn't be. You should be managing the team so they do the job. But I always used to like to know the jobs of everyone. So if they were saying, oh, I've got so much work to do, I could go, well, no, that's only 2 hours work. Go on, you can get that done. I didn't like to have the wall pulled over my eyes on anything. So I used to really sort of get in and dirty. And I think that's what you're doing as well. You're knowing how the business can change because you are taking the plugs out and you're looking at them and you're thinking, no, they're fine, and I'm going to put those back in, or you're going to take the leads off. A business is just like an engine. And using the NASCAR analogy right in the introduction, you need a fast car and a talented driver, but you need engineers as well, don't you?
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. And again, I think there's different ways to run businesses. And certainly I think that, you know, scaling up and delegation is just part of the way that part of it goes to it. But, you know, we're in, like I say, I'm in a place in my life where I'm really happy. I make a really good living, I feel. And it's too risky to sacrifice that by trying to chase, you know, more revenues by risking, I think, the thing that makes us one of the best at what we do, at least here, you know, in my market. So it's tough though, because you get a lot of people that want to see. I mean, if you get something really good and get in demand, I mean, it's pretty easy to scale it up and get more clients on. But if you double your revenues, but all of a sudden it starts to, you know, you start to risk some of your reputation or results. And what'd you just do?
Well, did you end up being a therapist for your clients? This is one of the things with what you're doing and what like Facebook ads guys are doing. A lot of it is about data, and a lot of it is going to take a while before you find out the right ways of doing it. It's not an instant fix. But I imagine a lot of clients come along and think, okay, I'm paying you. Why is nothing happening at the moment? But it takes time to sort of actually come to fruition. Do you find that you've got to be a therapist for your clients to actually get them to sort of stay with you for the long term to see the rewards?
To some extent. I mean, I definitely think that you try and tell people ahead of time, at least in my world, unless you're going after pay-per-click type stuff, which you can turn on and off. If you're going after a holistic marketing thing, and specifically if you're trying to, you know, show results on an SEO campaign, I mean, Google will tell you 4 to 12 months, you know, to start seeing results and things like that. So a lot of times you'll talk to clients and you'll say that and they'll nod their head, but for some reason they're still thinking 4 to 6 weeks, right? Or 4 to 12 weeks. So you do get this, I call it kind of like the SEO fatigue, where they've been, you know, in that 6 to 12 month period where that does seem like a long time to be paying, say, monthly retainers and only seeing minimal results or not the results that they had hoped for. Generally after like 12 months, they see the whole picture and all of the things that you're doing. But that's only a smaller segment of clients. What ends up happening for SEO anyways is that you get a lot of companies out there that are looking for that one Hail Mary tactic, right, to maybe bail them out or get the phone ringing because whatever happened is not happening. So whatever you tell them, they're still hoping that they can, you know, take this sum of money, their budget that they have, and give it to somebody and kind of wish for the best type of a thing. So you never know if you're going to get one of those clients, even though they might, you know, be nodding their heads in the meetings and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, sometimes you kind of have to do a little bit of, I guess, therapy and thing ahead of time, but you always got to look for people that understand, you know, the long-term nature of what you're trying to do. And also just the fact that there's so many pieces that you've got to get together, and really marketing in general right now is you get to get the strategy right. And you got to have the tactics, and you got to have the discipline and some time to make sure the thing rolls out to get the return on it. Because, you know, a lot of this stuff just doesn't happen overnight.
So is it eggs in one basket time? Is it better now to have a structured approach to building a business, or that scattergun approach? Maybe 5 or 10 years ago when I started doing the affiliate program that I was talking about earlier, WhatsApp Florida Keys, it was very much a case of building micro sites and micro niches and direct traffic to it. Does that work in SEO now? Did you need to actually have your social media, your forums? Does it all have to be the eggs in one basket?
I don't think so. What works, I think, for SEO in terms of a way that actually generates return and is sustainable is to, one, have your website be the marketing hub, because it essentially is anyway, right? And then actually doing all the things in a way that integrate back to the website. But when you start talking about web design you start talking about content marketing, and by content marketing, I'm going to throw in, blogging and videos and even things like, getting on podcasts and stuff like that is going to be part of it. And you think about social media participation, and again, doing it in the right way. Because one of the big things that we see with a lot of our clients is they'll go out and put they won't do much on their website at all. They treat it like a digital brochure. And if they do anything, they'll put some of their best content up on a social media channel in and of itself where it dies. Well, the correct way to do this is to put your best content on your website and then share that link and then bring people back so you can retarget them, you can pixel them, you can give them an offer and that kind of stuff, right? Instead of putting all your best stuff on. So a lot of it's just realigning and getting that kind of stuff. Reputation management, I think that's probably one of the biggest things out there, is trying to figure out what kind of personal connections, customer connections you make, and then following up and being persistent about getting reviews on people that can, vouch for their time for you, that kind of stuff. So when you start looking at all these little pieces of it, that starts, when you start talking about social media, reputation management, content marketing, it starts to just look like the digital marketing, modern digital marketing in general, right? It's just, the problem is, and this is where it ties into SEO, because I think SEO is the glue that makes everything kind of work and enables you to get 5 or 10x instead of 1x, is a lot of people, they go after and they just start trying tactics in general, right? They just start, I'm going to hip shoot at this one thing, or I'm going to hire a social media person, but none of it's all integrated in a way that, one, is going to get them the more return on it, but it's just not tying back to their website in a way where they're going to get Google credit for it. And that's important, because no matter, we feed stuff out into social media really, to me, is more of a real-time, is your content passing through people as the eyeballs are on it right now? Google represents the way that people can find it after it's kind of passed through the river right there, unless you're reposting all the time. So it's really important to be participating in social media where you get the folks in real time, but also setting it up in a place that's, referral source where people can find it if it's really good stuff when they're looking for things that are related to it. That's what's really working today, not trying to figure out what little, piece here and the microsites and that stuff. Some of that does kind of tie in together, but it's really more about taking a holistic approach, thinking about your business in terms of a strategy, and not just taking pot shots at tactics. And that's really what a lot of businesses do today, right? They're looking for that, either a silver bullet on an SEO tactic, or they're looking for a silver bullet on one of these other like vertical tactics, like a social, just like our business is set up right now. I've got 3 websites here in Kansas City that rank really well: marketing services website, an SEO website, and a web design website. Well, most of our business on the marketing retainers comes in from people that are looking for web design help. But even though they think they need a web design, they think that's the problem that they have, they really need marketing help. But that's the pain point that they have, right? Sometimes they come in for AdWords. The AdWords guys say, our AdWords isn't performing, we want to try AdWords. It's not really the AdWords they're having a problem with. It's the whole marketing approach that they're having. So we're always kind of turning that back into like, okay, who's the ideal customer? Let's do the keyword research and figure out who the audience is. And then trying to, like, getting back to your point earlier, David, which is really trying to, like you were talking about iTunes and how you'd like to deconstruct things. I think a lot of modern marketing right now is figuring out who the ideal customer is, figuring out how they search and consume content, and reverse engineering based around that activity. Once you can do that and lay that into a web-centric marketing plan, you can really kill it.
Do you know, Phil,
what works.
As you was talking, I had this image of a body in my head, and I've never thought of this before, but you put your content in your mouth. Social media is the digestive system that just sort of passes through you, and you see it, and sometimes you don't see it, and then everything comes out in one place, which is like the toilet basically, and that's Google. And that's sort of how I can see it all operating. All the content goes in, it passes through very briefly. Some people see it, some people don't, but it's where it ends up, which is the key place. Exactly.
Great way to explain it. Love it.
I've never thought of that myself, but I'm gonna trademark that one. That'd be my new business. That will be my business. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna take it. I don't know how I'm gonna frame it, but I'm gonna take it. What I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna play some words from a guy who really did know how to construct a business, and he took it to the top. Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
When you listen to those words, do they really hit home, not just in a sort of business sense, but actually personally, Phil?
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's really one of those things where all of a sudden you hear it and you're just like, your mind kind of opens up and you start, a lot of, for me, I'm looking back and a lot of things are kind of flooding into my head while I hear those words.
And do you need to have all the answers? I think that's what Steve's basically saying is, and we sort of alluded to it at the very beginning, about you've got to try stuff. You've got to just go out there and do stuff. Live your life until your path starts to come, where so many people think that they've got to almost join up their dots before they start.
Exactly. I mean, it's pretty powerful.
So where's your life come from then, Phil? When you look back on it, were you always destined to be here, or is it a complete surprise to you?
It feels so natural when you find something. To me, it feels so natural when I found it. Just feels like it's always been that way. Almost like having my kids. I mean, it's just kind of hard to imagine when life was without it, because it's become part of the core part of existence, I guess. But I don't know. For whenever I think when I hear those Steve Jobs talking there, I guess what it reminds me of is a turning point. And I guess it was almost kind of an epiphany, because when I was in school and probably when I got out of school, I used to be so consumed, I think, by two things. One, I worried a lot about what other people thought about me a lot, which I think, which has totally changed over the years. And that, I guess that's really, and I think I probably also, the second thing is, I think I stewed too long on failure, okay, of any sort. So anything that I thought was maybe somebody wronged me or I wasn't passed over, I think I probably used that more, just wasted energy. And I think what ends up happening over time is failure is just a part of succeeding. And for me, what I've been able to do is, you have to fail, you have to have these failures, and you have to kind of let it sink in. But if you can channel that to motivation and not use it as an excuse, to me, it's been basically a life changer. Because I still see that in younger people today, and even people that I know, where it seems like something hits them and it's just an excuse to kind of slow down or get lazy or just think about something else, instead of using that to be like, geez, this is a kick in the ass, I can do it better, and not stew on it. Because it's good to get pinched or kicked in the butt, because it gets the blood flowing sometimes, right? And if you can channel that the right way, I think it makes you a lot better at what you do. So those are the two. And then also worrying about what other people think about you, right? That was the thing that probably paralyzed me the most early on, was really just thinking so much and getting so nervous and anxious about what other people thought about every move that I'd made, that I got to a point in my life right now where I don't really care or worry about what anyone thinks about me. I care about what I think about myself, and I do what I think I believe in, and I just don't think about it like I used to. And I don't have the anxiety that I used to when I was younger, because I don't give people that kind of control over me, right? If you let other people, what they think about you, worry you, then you're essentially submitting to their control, and they don't even necessarily want the control. So those are the two things that I think have really kind of changed. I don't know if that's like connecting the dots, or it just really kind of has streamlined how I've been able to succeed, with the business that I have, but even in the personal connections in my life and that kind of stuff. So really kind of rambling there, David. Sorry.
No, I'm going to jump in.
I told you it came flooding in when you played the quote. So those are the two things I thought about immediately when I heard those words. And I don't even know that it relates directly, but it just felt like it did.
It certainly did. And what sort of came to me as you was talking was Eli and Austin. When they listened to you say those words, would they understand them? Would that be the kind of dad that they see on a daily basis, the raw and honest dad? Or are you go off and do the do and you come back and then you're there for them? Are you sort of compartmentalized like most dads are?
Well, I mean, you mentioned that, and it's honest. Now that I think about that, I'm actually okay. So I wrote this book, SEO for Growth, with John Jantz, right, of Duct Tape Marketing, and I'm opening on page, I guess it's page 11, where I've got my dedication. And you mentioned Eli and Austin, and I just gave that kind of, because that really came from the heart what I'm talking about. And here's my quote acknowledgement: is to my twin sons, Eli and Austin. Don't ever worry about what other people think about you, and always remember you can do anything you put your mind to. We talk about like trying to tell your younger self what you would want to say to yourself. Kind of that's how I look at my sons, right? A younger version of myself. And that was the actual quote. I figured, hey, if for some reason I get hit by a car, what one sentence or two sentences would I want to tell them that I think have changed my life? And it's really those words and owning it. Because it's one thing to say, don't ever worry about what other people think about you. It's another thing to actually believe it and have it change your life. Because it's you say it, you think it, but a lot of people don't. They still never kind of give up that power that they give to other folks. But that's what I would tell them or mention to them or try and like prove to them or show to them by being a kind of dad that they can see that this is how you can do it. Because I think it will help set them free.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to find out the words that you would have said to your younger self, because this is the part of the show called the Sermon on the Mic.
All right.
You jumped ahead, but no problem. We're going to bring you back. That's what we do on Join Up Dots. This is a part of the show called the Sermon on the Mic, when we're going to send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back in time and speak to the young Phil, what advice would you give and what age would you choose? Well, we're going to find out, because I'm going to play the theme, and when it fades, you're up. This is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
Okay, Phil, the first thing I'm going to tell you is to follow your instincts, right? If you don't feel like you're in a position right now or in a career path that you want to be in, that feeling is natural. And do not stop finding something in your life that you can work for and make a difference for, and also make a good living at, until you find something that is going to be something that you really love. So I don't want you ever to be in a position where you wake up in the morning and dread going to work, because it doesn't have to be like that. And even though it might feel like that, you keep looking. It might feel like that in the second job. It might feel like that in the third job. Keep going on, because eventually you're going to find something that you really like, that you love, and you're going to be able to also help people and make a positive contribution to society. That'd be the first thing. The second thing is, don't worry about your anxiety. Everybody gets nervous and maybe fearful of talking to people in public or going out and meeting with folks. But I think at some point, if you can find that and realize that the only person you really have to impress is yourself, and be fully confident and love yourself and love what you do, then that's really where the starting point should be. So focus on that piece of it and focus on your friends and family. But don't stew on the mistakes that you make in life. Don't stew on perceived things that you perceive are wrongdoings, because if you just focus on that negativity, it's going to pull you back. If you can find a way to channel that energy into motivation, it will change your life. It will enable you to make a lot more money a lot quicker, and it will make you a lot happier.
Great stuff. What's the number one best way that our audience can connect with you, Phil?
Well, if you want to see how we've done it in terms of web design and SEO, kcwebdesigner.com is kind of our web design services. Again, we're kind of more servicing local and regional folks here in the States, but we do have people all around the country now. And KC SEO Pro is kind of our exclusive SEO internet marketing services. But the big focus right now is on SEO for Growth and the book that I wrote with John Jantz of Duct Tape Marketing, and that's where you can get the book. In fact, it's free for Amazon Prime members. And if you get the free copy, you can actually go back to SEOforgrowth.com. And we've got an awesome 3-bundle ebook. We've got one from Larry Kim of WordStream. They gave us one from Yoast Devak at Yoast SEO. They gave us one of their highly coveted ebooks. And then we've got another one called Local SEO that's in this 3 ebook bundle. So get the free Prime Kindle up on Amazon. Come back to the website, register on it, get a free download immediately, and you've got 4 pretty awesome books to read for the rest of 2017.
We will have all the links on the show notes. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots, Phil. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up the dots and connecting our past is the best way to build our futures. Phil Singleton, thank you so much.
Thanks, David.
Mr. Phil Singleton. So he didn't really know what he wanted to do, and then he kind of found something that was interesting to him, but then he spent time upskilling. And as we were talking about on the show, that's how it's done. Nobody starts as a finished article. You just have to get better and better, and you don't have to be that far ahead to start actually charging people for your knowledge. You really don't. And as you get more and more experience, obviously your fees can go up. But I think that's a big stumbling block that so many people have. The fact that they think they've got to be absolutely world-dominating masters of something before they can start making a living on it. It's not true, really isn't. I'm the proof of that, and I'm sure Phil will put his hand up and say exactly the same. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Join Up Darts. Thoroughly appreciate you being here. Until next time, see ya. Bye-bye.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.